pose this one question
Sure.
for closing. So out of all the minimal information that we have of documents that have been classified, like we said before, this is like a fraction of burnt documents, and then from that document pool that survived, we're only allowed declassified what we can see, right? So how effective do you think they got it in terms of, do you think they achieved a full-fledged sleeper agent, or they achieved a full-fledged type of mind control, or they achieved a full-fledged,
I think there's an argument, and not to get us banned here, I'll keep it as vague as I can. There's been an argument going around for a long time that a lot of the tragic incidents that have been happening at American schools for a long time have been directly related to projects like these. And, there's not exactly hard evidence all the time, but I think, one of the famous QAnon quotes is, "How many coincidences?"
Yeah, right. No, it's true. Yeah. Well, because
I'll
go. Oh, like every time that, one of these like terrible events happens, it's always like comes out that they were previously known. Like the FBI knew about them, but or the CIA or whatever. It's like there's all these federal agencies that it's like, yeah, we knew this person was about to snap, and like, I mean, that's a way you could do with it. Like, you don't have to like trap someone inside of a laboratory and like give them LSD. You could just be like, take an already crazy paranoid person that might have schizophrenia or might have whatever,
and just become their friend,
and then become their friend online. I mean, there's so many examples of that kind of stuff. And then, and it's like, if you show up, it's like, then you get the actual cops or the actual FBI or CIA or whatever to show up to someone's house, like while their parents aren't there or whatever. And then they take an already crazy person, and then they're like, oh, then after that, the cops give them a warning or whatever. And then they're really like, the cops are after me. That everybody knows, like, you're a Fed. Like, you can really just twist someone's whole psyche up.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying with the Harvard experiments, where it doesn't necessarily have to be so brazen and explicit in people's faces. You take small things, small comments over a longer period of time sometimes, and those sort of things build up to demoralize a person over a long period of time. Like, you can make somebody
compounding
paranoid.
Effect of demoralization. I think that's probably the best way to do it, because it's the most subverted.
There's also it's a little more less documented and a little more in the conspiracy territory, but like there's Project Monarch, where it's like you don't even need drugs. You can just traumatize somebody, and then they'll be very susceptible to being influenced, and the suggestibility goes through the roof once somebody's just traumatized, whether it be through violence or being assaulted, or for even just seeing something that's psychologically traumatizing. So I think that they've gotten in on that of like collectively traumatizing people. I think they've gotten good at that and making people to kind of, again, like I said, the kind of next step in this to me is like the society-wide control, because that's the stuff that, like the sociological kind of stuff, like the social engineering kind of techniques that I've seen in my own life with my own fucking eyes. Yeah, they succeeded with all this stuff for sure.
Well, it's not logistically reasonable to pursue a project like MK Ultra at a grand scale either, because you can't mass drug the public and mass hypnotize the public.
Exactly.
You
with
have
the
to
water
work.
source potentially.
I mean, people have tried and been promptly arrested. But I think you're right about how they had to, expand their thinking, and the Soviets were probably on the tip more than them, and they took some notes and went more along the route of social demoralization and the breakdown of culture and people's identity with things like art and music. And over time, that creates longer, cascading effects.
I should have included, but the Cultural Revolution in the 70s from Mao Zedong, it's even worse than the first rounds, because they got all the younger kids, because everybody who survived that first round was like, okay, we're not doing that shit. But then he hopped up the next generation to be like, oh, all these old heads, they don't know what's up, like they hate you, it's your fault, we had it good, and they ruined it for you. And so he hopped up all these college kids, and they did the whole thing, they ran the whole thing back again. And it's all about, again, traumatizing people who are at a point the little red book, Mao's little red book. So I think they moved past the individual level. I think that
they made it obsolete.
Yeah.
Like because just taking one person and making them completely insane is like too much of a liability, because then they start doing Unabomber shit. But if you can just take 1 million people and make them all like
Sort of
2,
insane.
2, 3, 4, 5% more insane,
Yep.
because like when you think about psychology, you're thinking about just one person's brain, but you have to almost think of it as like, you know, one nation or one, you know, or just like the whole world, you know, is like it's like one like super organism, one giant brain. And so if you can kind of just generally
Culture.
infect the culture or the cultural
And they-
zeitgeist,
they
then
were-
you can yeah.
They were just doing studies too. Like I should have included it, but there was a recent study where they were talking about like increased susceptibility to being suggestible with people who are on the spectrum. And so we have more and more
Interesting.
people who are openly identifying, saying that they're some level of autistic, and there's studies that are saying, yes, people that are more autistic are easier to basically gaslight.
Okay, so that leads perfectly into what I was about to bring up, which is probably I think one of the most well-known modern examples of something people attribute to the research generated by MK Ultra, and that is Elsa Gate, which was a YouTube phenomenon that started popping up a couple years ago. I think maybe 3-4 years ago now.
Stuff's
where
terrifying.
It's terrifying, right? Where it's artificially generated, in most cases, cartoons where they feature an uncannily similar animation style and aesthetic across the board between hundreds of different YouTube channels. And all these cartoons explicitly feature popular child characters, Elsa from Frozen and Spider-Man from Spider-Man. And together they would do unspeakable acts, and there would be fetish-related material, trypophobia-related material,
Violence.
physical abuse, drug abuse,
Gore.
and these are all animated for children in a children's style cartoon format. And the worst part about this is these videos were getting past the YouTube Kids algorithm filter for months and months and months. I don't think YouTube ever cracked down on it. So these videos were getting fed directly to all these young, you know, potentially autistic children out there who are super hyper fans of their superheroes or whatever, and watching them, you know, like pee on each other or something.
It's crazy that you say that, because my girlfriend's nephew, we used to like have him over a lot, you know, watching, babysitting him, all that kind of stuff, and he loves Sonic, like to death, you know. He like that's like his favorite thing, like you know. And I remember, like, you know, he would be on YouTube, and he would just go on YouTube and look up Sonic, and like it would be videos like that like just super disturbing videos of Sonic doing all these different things with his different characters and stuff like that. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, you can't watch Sonic unless we're in the room to make sure that it's actually like,
I know. I remember the first time
Okay.
I seen that
You can't
shit
trust
too.
YouTube kids.
It just auto played into it, and I remember just being like, "The fuck am I looking at?" And it was like fucking Mickey and fucking something to. I think that those were AI generated. I think they already had
Seemed
that
like it was,
technology, and that shit. That's how that was so. Because people were like, "Who the fuck's making this?" I was like, "It's got to be either a sweatshop or it's got to be AI." And now we know about AI. It's like they're probably feeding, because they're all the same. They all have the same kind of structure to them too, of the same bullshit happening in them.
It's one of the original examples of an automation channel using like a Python script to make videos.
It's not exactly AI necessarily, but it's like it's kind of like just a random generator of like different like permutations of the same video, basically.
We'll call it a baby language model.
Yeah, there you go. Yikes.
Laugh. Anyway.
But again, that just kind of ties in though, where it's like the wider society wide has clearly been where they turn their focus to. I think that some people, I mean, you go deep enough on the internet, some people might be getting singled out by people. They try to manipulate your head, but the social engineering, I think, is what they took a pivot towards. Especially Gibraltar loves social engineering. Saw a ton of it during his freaking administration. Even as a teenager, I was like, what the? I was like, this is so clearly just fucking. They're trying to get people to think certain type of way, and that's or too. There's those big talk about mass formation psychosis, where everybody's doing the cha-cha slide to the left. Take it back now, y'all. Like and just COVID saw a ton of that. And it's like and again, I mean, shit, we had some thought reform type shit going on during that. It said you couldn't say certain things. If you thought certain things, the rest of society would pounce on you.
Yep.
And that's where I think this thing, I'd be down to pick up on that subject next time we approach the topic.
It's all already happening, in my opinion, and it's like every form of hypnosis or mass manipulation or whatever you want to call it that I know of is always voluntary. You have to participate with it. You have to kind of be willing to be hypnotized in order to be hypnotized. But I think the system is set up to where like we don't even know that we're allowing the hypnosis.
It's participation through ignorance.
Volunteerism.
Exactly.
Also, too, people are suggestible when they're horny and when they're afraid. And look how much ass is on Instagram these days. Look how much sex and degeneracy has fucking perverted society these days.
Yeah, the media's telling you about every war, every terrible thing that's happening all the
coronavirus, whatever it is, it's all designed to keep us in a certain way of thinking.
No. Yeah, like you literally on any given day, like when you just look at social media, it's like titties, George Floyd, bombs, like it's like all of the like just most like all of the things that can trigger visceral emotions in you all at the same time.
And then in between that, every single ad is like, here's how you scale your coaching business to $1,000 billion a month. Just download my fucking free PDF and I'll put my dick up your
just like you just get to pick your flavor of programming.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
Man.
Well put.
Yeah, man. Shit's crazy. I think again too an important takeaway from this whole thing is that the government will experiment on you. They don't care.
They probably already have.
They probably have. They will. They've done it before. They'll do it again. That's one of the biggest things. And again, science is just a method. Anybody can do science to use anything. Science is not inherently free of if science is not pure. There's a lot of arguments these days that science is a pure thing, and because it's being constantly refined, that makes it better. No, because it's being constantly refined, that means somebody's wrong right now. Somebody who's doing science right now is wrong, and
somebody has to be wrong.
It has to.
And we got to figure out what's wrong before we can figure out what's right in a lot of cases.
The whole point is not saying, not saying that it's right. It's about finding out when it's going to be wrong. That's what science is all about. So we found out what they were doing here was very, very